Hello, everyone. Welcome to Embracing What's Possible with Roxy. Today, I have Jennifer Bellis. She is an author and a deaf and hard of healing instructor at some universities. She is going to tell you all about it today, which I'm so excited. And she's a professor and she teaches American Sign Language and I know she has a lot of great stuff to tell us about in the deaf and hard of healing world and also a little bit about ASL. We cannot wait to talk about barriers and employment issues and maybe even a little bit of sprinkle of employment success. I cannot wait to hear what we're going to discuss today. And Jennifer, I would love for you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do.
Hi, Roxy. Thank you for having me on the show. I
You're
teach
so welcome.
American Sign Language on the college level. I just started in a second school, and this is a different type of program. It's like an interpreting program that I'm doing, and they're doing well in there. And I teach in a different school, the regular lower levels, 1 and 2 and 4. And then in the other group, this new school is intermediate ASL and a level 3, very hard stuff. And I like to show my creativity and do projects and stories with them. Also an author and tutor as well.
So, can you explain the different levels? I'm not as familiar with ASL. When I worked at a one stop, I remember being watching on the video camera people doing ASL. I also remember that machine that the relay system. So I use that a lot, but I don't know about the levels. So my excitement would be, can you give some education on the levels to our audience?
Well, a level 1 class is somebody pretty much who doesn't know anything, or maybe they know a little bit. You learn the alphabet and numbers, and then you learn a lot of vocabulary and sentences. And we touch a little tiny bit on storytelling, and I teach them bookmarking. Then you have what's called level 2, when they're expected to have a little bit better, a little faster and more concise. And then we do a lot of storytelling in there. And then a level 3 class is about telling stories and poetry and all kinds of different things like that, and more vocabulary words in a level 3 or 4 class. And we talk about deaf culture and history as well. Very important to know all the facts.
So I'm fascinated by this. So are people in there that are deaf, or there are people in there that want to learn deaf culture?
Well, we have all the above. If I have students with all kinds of disabilities, it doesn't have to be just hearing loss, but you could have people
Wow.
with hearing loss in the classroom, integrated, people with autism, mental health problems, or no problems whatsoever, and they want to learn ASL for their job, or maybe they volunteer to learn for the family member. Let's say their sibling is autistic or hearing loss, or themselves. I've had, oh, I want to learn it for my sister or my parents. It makes you feel good. So you have
Uh,
all kinds of
Wow.
people. They want to be an interpreter or DVR, all kinds of different fields.
That's amazing. You're giving me a lot of education today because I don't know this world as much. How did you get started in this industry?
When I was a little girl, I had a mild, I guess, hearing loss. And then as I got older, the hearing loss became worse due to different medical problems. And I wanted to learn more about myself and hearing loss, and I joined HLAA and all the, which is support groups of people who have hearing loss. And they also have NAD, National Association for the Deaf, for all people with hearing loss. So I wanted to learn more about myself, and I went to one of the conventions, and it really opened my eyes. I didn't know what in the world to expect. They had hearing dogs and flashing lights, and they had so many different things. And they had a thing called mentors. And that was the most important thing of all. And one time my father, when he was alive, he said to write this letter to somebody, and she was the president at the time, and we became friends, and she became my mentor to help me understand about the hearing loss. Everything is, the problem is, as you know yourself, everything is hidden, accommodation, disability advocacy, everything to this day is hidden. That's why I am an author and a teacher, and I go around and I teach about disability advocacy and how to help people understand it. So as my hearing loss became worse from different problems, I decided to major in American Sign Language in
Hmm.
graduate school at NYU. It was really hard. It wasn't easy for me at all, but I
It
did it.
doesn't
I
sound
scored
like
pretty
it.
high.
It
Yeah,
doesn't sound like it at all. It sounds like it's deep work.
it was very, very hard to learn, and
Wow.
it's not universal. So if you have two
Oh.
people talking, it may be so it could be an area thing, certain signs or speed. So like if you're in New York, things are ultra fast. And then if you're somewhere else, it could be slow or different signs or different ways. So watch the person and then ask the questions.
So does that mean that there's different types of sign language, like American Sign Language, and then there's another whole type of sign language?
Yeah, they have sign language in all the different countries. So we have American Sign Language being in the United States. And then if they went to another country, it would be a whole different thing. But even
Whoa.
from room to room, teacher to teacher, it's going to vary or different areas, different signs. So teachers try to teach the students four, two or three different ways so that way they can recognize them.
That's a lot to learn.
Well, they
That's a
have
lot.
facial and body grammar and placement and then the sign. So that's kind of a lot.
And then do people have to like repeat these level ones and level twos sometimes because there's just so much
Sometimes
information?
if they can grasp it, I've had people who cannot, they would have, yes, they can retake the class. And other people who do well, they would just continue on if they want to a higher level.
What's the highest level?
Well, the highest level that I took in school was probably 8 or 12. That was so long ago.
Okay. But there are higher levels than the three and the four. Wow.
Level three and even level two class is very difficult. Even a level one class, it's hard. Imagine you never had this for an example. If you have a book like this face out now instead of a face like this, because somebody else is reading you. I mean, and then no voices. So it's like
Hmm.
it's a lot of cultural things to learn.
Wow. That's a lot. What about cart? What do you know about cart?
Cart, C-A-R-T, is
Yeah.
when somebody types it up, blah, blah, blah. But the problem that I have with this, I
Mm.
did this one semester in grad school. It was not good. For a 3 hour class, they gave me 300 pages. And they wrote the boy dropped the pen, the girl played with her hair. I want 3 pages. That's it. I don't want 300 pages for a 3 hour class. So it really didn't work for me. But I
Oh,
mean, if I can read what they're typing at the time, then that like a baseball game or something like that, or a
oh,
school, then that would be beneficial. Hello, my name is whatever. But nah, I'm not going to sit there and say, that's not a good accommodation, but I'm not going to go pouring through hundreds of pages. I only really care what the teacher had to say when I was studying, or if a student has something to say, not all the little non-essential things. I mean, that's what CARD is.
okay. Thank you. You touched on this a little bit, and you talked about some of the jobs that might be available for people who might want to learn ASL or do ASL. What kind of jobs do people go into for American Sign Language or why they're joining these classes?
Well, some people just do it, take American Sign Language over 1 or 2 for a language requirement. And the biggest problem is a lot of schools do not recognize it as a language. And that's the first thing that's not very nice. But in 2015 or 16, around there, or whatever year it was, that they started recognizing it in the schools that it's a language. And then they, have programs in some of the schools, if they take off, you have in the high school levels.
Okay.
Okay, so you also have people in the high school who can come to college and take classes along the college people too. So you're going to have all different levels. You can have like regular, you can have honors, you can have high school. I've taught all the different type of grad students. They can all conglomerate into these type of classes.
And then, so in your jobs, you have always had a job as a college professor teaching ASL, or what kind of roles have you done?
I also taught adjunct as well for psychology.
Oh,
I did honors with that as well, and did administration, tutoring, disabilities, quite a lot of things. So going back to your answer to your question, if somebody wanted to take ASL classes, what in the world would they do with it as a career? They can
Yeah.
continue on as an interpreter, but they would
Oh,
have to take quite a lot of classes, and they should have at least an AAS degree or a bachelor's so they can do something with it, not just like a bunch of classes is not enough. You have to have a degree in what you're doing and an experience, and going to the events is very crucial to see the deaf people and seeing what setting they might want to be in. That's one avenue. Another avenue, somebody wants to continue on with a master's degree and be a professor like me, then, on a graduate level and then they could teach undergraduate levels. So in other words, you have to be at least one step higher than them to teach them, basically. Okay, in school. Then they have CART, like mentioned before, they can be a stenographer in the courtroom or things like that. They could work in a DVR type setting in voc rehab where they can go and do that as a counselor. I'm sure you've heard of that before.
mhm.
And they have quite a lot of different jobs in like social services and different agencies like Easter Seals, and people have like a job coach, and they would know American Sign Language, but they're not being an interpreter role.
Okay.
But they would be, let's say, the job coach who knows ASL for deaf and hard of hearing clients, if that's what, they have at the time or whatever they're hired for.
Wow. So much information and so much insight. What are some of the barriers to employment in the deaf and hard of hearing world?
I am hard of hearing myself. I now have a moderate to severe hearing loss.
Okay.
So the barriers for me are, well, who's talking, what do they want, what do they have to say? And then so I'm trying to figure that out, and they're all done and mad that I didn't get what they said. So in other words, figure out where the noise is, who's talking, then you got to hear it, and then you have to decipher it. You got to be able to comprehend speech. So for somebody with a moderate to severe loss, that is very, very difficult. And, you really hope that people have a lot of patience. Like I had a whole high school class in the summer, and they were very patient with me. They could tell that, all of a sudden, wow, I couldn't understand them at all. I'm like, what's going on? So I had to have like an adjustment with the hearing aids to help me. I also use an FM type thing. It looks like
Hmm.
this. Sometimes this is with Oticon. Sometimes they're included. Humongous barrier is the cost of hearing aids. They every week, one of my group of students heard that it was ridiculous. They wanted to go from they were 5,000, they want to go to 6,000, they want 8,000. I told them they're crazy. It should not go up $1,000 a week. Another thing is called CapTel, and that's a phone in the state of New Jersey, or a caption call. They have that as well. It should be free. It used to not be, only the low income. And that means you can use a phone and call so-and-so. I mean, it's not always accurate, as you know, when you do voice to text. And it says blah, blah, blah on it and a much louder speech. And then I also use a cell phone that is clearer speech as well. And they have something called INO caption, INNO caption.
Hmm.
And somebody could be on their cell phone and they could have the captioning as well as speech gear, which is very, very similar. So there are a lot of things that you can do. So some of the barriers are when the technology doesn't work. Okay, that it's not compatible. Like if a student's cochlear implant is not compatible with the information or whatever they're trying to do, or the hearing aids, that could be or it didn't work, or the battery didn't work, or the charger. Let's say it's great to have thing that charges, but I have an all electric house, so that's a tremendous barrier. Another big thing is if you need an accommodation in a job, in a school, I highly suggest to gather your 504 papers and do it a month in advance. And so when you need an interpreter for being deaf and hard of hearing as a teacher or a student, you need to do this way in advance. They are very slow. And please be very specific on what your requirements are. And now I will give an example of a barrier. They have no clue that I need the lights on, and I have to always tell them lights on so I can speech read them. I can see the interpreter. If they close the
Oh.
lights, then you can't see anybody, you can't see anything. So what is the point? So then because the shadows are falling on the face, so that way you can lip read people. Okay, so that those are all barriers to employment. What about in an interview setting and the person can't hear what in the world they have to say and they're not nice? Then they don't care to repeat themselves or look at you. There's all kinds of barriers, but there's ways to beat them by advocating for yourself. And please remember, everybody needs different accommodations. For an example, we had other deaf professors fully deaf and I'm hard of hearing. So my accommodations look like this with lights on and ASL, but on normal pace. And in speech read, they're going to do this. And from the interpreter, and there's only certain interpreters that can do that. Whereas somebody who's fully deaf all their life, they're going to go 9,000 miles an hour. And for me, I can't absorb 9 million miles an hour. Or you can have somebody who does ASL in their hands. It's called tactile ASL when they
Mm.
fingerspell. Deaf, blind, so they have the barriers. But there's all kinds of accommodation. Or you have blind. We had 11 students that were blind in one of our campuses. And we have a lot of accommodations for these people. And it's a matter of, whatever the disability is, it's up to that person to advocate for themselves and use follow-up. Just because I had the student now doesn't mean tomorrow or next semester it didn't change. So I ask you, always do these things at least a month in advance because they have thousands of students and make sure
Mm.
they're done correctly. Follow up.
Okay. That's such important information. On wow. It starts making me think about what we need to do at events and what people need to know about for events. It's just there's so much great information here because and every single disability is different. Every single disability has their own. We all need the accommodation. We all need there's always barriers to certain things. But what I'm loving about learning about this is that somebody who is fully deaf needs completely different accommodations than somebody who's hard of hearing. And these are important tips. I mean, who's giving this information out?
Nobody.
Maybe in the deaf and hard of hearing world, but I'm not hearing about this. And I've been in the industry for a long time, and I don't remember hearing about all of these tips. And you gave a lot of great information. Do you find or have you heard that when somebody is deaf or hard of hearing and they're trying to find a job, have you heard that it's very difficult for them to find a job? Or have you also heard, well, ask that part, but have you also heard that it's very difficult to even get the accommodations that they need for the interview?
Those are some great questions, Roxy. Yes, it can be very difficult in an interview because think for some people don't use ASL. Usually people who are hard of hearing usually do not use ASL. So their accommodations would be very, very different in an interview setting or a job setting. They would need lights on and maybe an FM and people repeating and writing it down, things like that. Or maybe a job coach, depending on what level of intelligence, or what they might need from
Sure.
somebody from DVR or whatever. But then somebody who is fully deaf or relies on ASL, they need to bring an interpreter with them or ask the agency wherever they're going to provide it. But the person has to be told in advance. They can't just, same thing anywhere they go. It can't just automatically happen. It has to be a planned idea. So
Okay.
yes, there are barriers to interviewers. If people are very rude and they turn around and I want to know in the first 30 seconds if I've had experiences at some universities and they're like, wow, that's just great. They couldn't care less, or some teacher. That makes me really mad. You know,
Hmm.
people
Yeah.
want to be in the education field and do not take the time to help people. They're like, oh man, someone with a disability. I mean, That's so unprofessional. You should go out of your way to help every person, whatever you could try. I mean, some people are ridiculous. You can't reach everybody, but you have
Oh,
to try to help. And that's why I do disability education projects and seminars and libraries and bookstores. And that's why I publish the books, because you ask questions, Roxy, and nobody knows any of these things. They're very, very hidden to this day. All these accommodations, and people don't know anything.
I have a magazine. So some of this stuff would be great for the magazine. I also have my website has freebies on it and would love some of these resources on my freebie page. And I would love to give you credit on that because my media company, I want disability education and I am a resource coordinator, but I'm not I love disability education as a whole, but I need people out there like you who can talk on these topics that like nobody is. And I'm really surprised that a lot of this information is not out there. I mean, but again, in the disability world, it doesn't surprise me because there's so many things that we want to have out there, but we don't always have out there. And and there's too much hidden in the disability world. There's too much forgotten about in the disability world that we need to always be educating and bringing these things up. This is like a lot of great information. And I thank you for having the knowledge. And I thank you for also wanting to educate so much. um, I'm wondering on the whole concept of disability values, disability concepts. What do you think is I've coined a new term about disability curiosity, disability curious, because I want to educate people who are not disabled and want to know more. What would you say is something that in the world, because a lot of people that are watching my show may or may not be disabled. Maybe they have a family member that is, or maybe they don't even know anything about it. What would you say is something that would be great education beyond of what you've shared that people should know or that you want people to know about disability?
Well, I've learned from personal experiences that people should ask. Don't assume, don't think that people want accommodation. You can't force it on anybody, and you can't say, okay, I'm going to wheel this wheelchair. You need to please ask permission. I learned that one time when I was a student in a college. I learned how did I know about what the blind student wanted me to do? How would I know? I learned that you need to ask people's permission or how they might want assistance from you. You can't assume, like you could have people who don't know what accommodations are, they don't want it. You have, and as a professor, I have to respect them. I'll help you as much as I can, but I can't give you time and a half if you don't want the accommodation. If you do, terrific. If you don't know you have a disability, I'll tell you where to go, where to go, on a job or, things like that. There's also another thing called JAN, JAN.
Yes.
And that if you have a complaint or you need extra help, that's a great resource. And NAMI, NAMI, is also a great resource as well for mental health.
So, yeah, so the EEOC is where you go for the complaint, and I think that information is on the JAN website. But the JAN website, let's talk about that for a minute because I love JAN. Jan is a job accommodation network. And inside of that is every single disability. And if you go in there, there's resources, there's information on all of the disabilities, like, and they give examples on accommodation. Now, here's something that I think you and I would have fun with, that accommodations are going to cost so much money to the school or to the employer, right? And they're going to be like, oh, well, we can't afford that, so we're not going to accommodate that. But
Right.
again, most accommodations cost under $150. How hard would it be if a conference wanted to do a conference and we asked them to put out snacks that were not peanut or not peanut or had celiac, had wheat in it? How hard would that be? I'm sure they could get some gluten-free food. And, if a person is hard of hearing, you called it the FM system. How much does that cost?
Well, in this particular case, it was included. But in the other brand hearing aid, they were like up to $10,000, and you have to get like a boot on the hearing aid, thousands and thousands of dollars on top of the cost of hearing aid. So that's a tremendous barrier. Very
So I've got
expensive.
a question with this barrier. What about insurance? It doesn't cover it?
Next to nothing. They want very little help, not much. And then here's a new thing. I don't know if I really like it.
Oh.
They have over the counter hearing aids. But the thing is, if it's a mild to moderate hearing loss and they are cheaper, but I want to know, is anybody testing people's hearing? How are they calibrating these new things on the market? That's great. They can get something cheapo, but who is monitoring these things? I don't know. I have my
Well,
doubts.
what about Apple? Apple is saying that their new Air iPods are hearing for the hearing impaired. Has anybody tested them?
I don't know. I don't even know if they run actual hearing tests or an audiogram. I would
Right.
still say that is key to knowing if you have a hearing loss, how much hearing loss do you have, what speech levels. How are you going to know all that with just buying any X, Y, and Z product without having to
And what
make
is that test?
the
What is,
test?
yeah, what is the
An
thing that you
audiogram or a hearing test is
Okay,
the same
I
thing.
see.
I believe that somebody should have that. How else would these hearing aids just be calibrated for somebody?
And then the doctors can't prescribe this?
An audiologist or a hearing person like a Costco, they can prescribe hearing aids, yes. And they're all very, very expensive. An audiologist, anything from like 6,500 and up for a pair of hearing
And
aids.
who's paying for all of this?
We are. And they have something called DBR
Yeah.
in your state, and they may or may not have funding, and you may or may not qualify. But and they
Yes.
also have help for seniors, and then they have ways to recycle hearing aids to get tax credit to give to poor
Okay.
seniors or third world countries. But a lot of people have to pay it out of their pocket if they won't help. But it is you can get money back from or deduction or whatever for your taxes. But it's a lot of money. And the other barrier, it only lasts 3 to 5 years. And the technology is already brand new by the time 3 years comes out. So that's really a fortune. You want to really take care of your devices.
You I mean, they were talking about in Massachusetts about the wheelchair repairs. Sounds like there needs to be a whole advocacy campaign around hearing aids. But can HSA, FSA pay for this?
I don't know.
Health
I don't
health
have that.
savings accounts, family savings accounts? Oh, and then what about Easter seals and the and some of the agencies, and can those help?
I don't know. Maybe I don't know if those kind of agencies help, but I don't know if they help just low income or if they pay for hearing aids, but like DVR is the only one, or Hear Now, HEAR Now, they have where you could
Oh,
donate or sometime to purchase them cheaper, or veterans as well to help them. But it's very, very expensive.
so people have to pay for their own hearing aids,
Yeah, and that's a big drawback. If insurance pays something or very little.
even though they might need them.
Right. So then what happens? Then they can't have it. So then when they did this over the counter business, people are like thrilled, but I would still want them to have a hearing test and I would want the hearing aid, whatever it is that they buy to be calibrated, not just guesswork either.
Wow. Well, I'm going to probably tap your brain some more on all of these nuggets that you've been dropping. You've been doing mic drops all over the place, and I thank you for that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I will be reaching out to you to see what we might be able to collaborate on some of these talking points and for a potential article because I think you brought in a lot of great points. All right.
Right.
This is going to probably be your anything else that you want to share before I ask you your favorite question and that it's something that you're going to want to talk about very broad, very happily. Mm.
Oh, I think that this was a really nice interview, very low key,
Oh.
very educational, and I thank you for that. And I
Mhm.
just wish that people would learn. I think it should go in the article tips on how to interact with somebody who has hearing loss because they have absolutely no clue. The biggest thing I like doing skits in my classrooms and things like that with
Okay.
students. Like for an example, they need to be in the same room. So if you're in another room, that's the biggest fight of all. And the
Mm-hmm.
person doesn't hear whatever you're saying. So you have to be in the same room and have the attention and make sure to ask the other person if they heard or understood what in the world. That's how fights happen. One, two, three. I was famous in HLAA in New Orleans, and my husband and I, we did that skit. So I do that in every classroom or wherever I teach
Okay.
or, help people because they don't know.
All right. Well, we're gonna make some attempts to fix some of that and with my magazine and some of the tip sheets that I have on my pages on my website. And I'm excited about that. Now, here's gonna be the fun part. I want you to tell us about your books and how to find them on Amazon.
Okay, great. This is my first book. Here I am. And it talks about me going through graduate school at NYU and how difficult it was for me to learn about and accept. That's the first step is accepting when you have a disability and what it is. And then you also need a role model, which is me. I wish I had more role models out there and people to talk to
Hmm.
and how I feel all the time. Okay, well, I didn't hear this didn't work and that didn't work. And it takes a lot to advocate every time.
Hmm.
And I shared about all the different colleges that I graduated in from. I talk about different things, disability accommodations in there, the difference with deaf culture and hard of hearing culture, and different things like that. My dogs are not service dogs, but they are Shelties and they round up everything. And so I had my first one, a male dog, Lightning, and same thing with Princess that I have now. And basically, anytime the doorbell rings or someone's calling my name or the stove has anything like that that require, she will bark her head off and get my attention for, she didn't need to be trained because they know to round it up, but they do have service dogs and they have canine companions. And
Mm.
I like them. They're a wonderful organization, but the person needs to be trained and the animal as well. And we would watch that in Newark Airport in New Jersey about the golden retrievers or labs. Not all of them made it to the training.
Wow, that's exciting. Again, I'm going to tap you on this emotional, on this support dog that's not an emotional support dog and not a service dog. There needs to be a brand new name. We're going to come up with it together offline on what the
Mhm.
name of these dogs that help the deaf and hard of hearing world that I didn't even know existed. Did you have a second book or only one?
I just published Making Positive Changes. You see
Okay.
all the rainbows, and these books are good for anybody, both books who want to make a change. And this book, my students, they kept demanding it and calling for it. So I published it this year, and I've helped, like thousands of people
Okay.
in figuring out the goals of what you need to do through my examples, be it medical, physical, whatever work related with disability challenges and interviews and different things like that in your life of making changes of what they need. For example, I talked about how I didn't need these gigantic steps anymore. I needed to have things, we purchased a new home and make accommodations that we both needed. And I talk about that in my book, and that way it makes life a lot easier for your accommodations. And yes, keep all your receipts to take off on your taxes someday. But so it's really important to be able to do this. The books are sold through me, $25 a piece soft cover. In the United States, you can go on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all the different are everywhere, all these different books.
We will make sure that when your show gets published, that we'll have that information as best as we can, so people know where to order them and how they can do that. And when you get your show link, we'll get that information out and we'll have a little social post for you. Jennifer, I am so grateful that you came on to Embracing What's Possible for our employment segment of for National Employment Month. I'm Roxy Rocker, and I am your host of Embracing What's Possible. We talk about disability here. We talk about disability issues. And when we did our breathwork program just recently, those are for mental health. We need to take care of our mental health. I have one last fun and exciting question because I am launching an adaptable, but I am not launching an adaptable. I'm launching an accessible clothing line on accessories and fashion because I've have structural issues and I'm a wellness practitioner. So I understand the body, but my body hasn't worked since I was born, and I always have problems and I always have to readjust my clothes. And sometimes my bras don't fit me right because they feel uncomfortable, even though they fit me right in the store. And then after they get washed, I'm like, ugh, ugh, what is that? And because I have structural issues and I don't know if one shoulder is going to be too high or if my hip is going to be riding up. I don't know what my body is going to do because my body does what it does. Do you have any problems with clothes? Do you have you ever had problems dressing?
I'd have to think.
Well, if you haven't, it's okay. What about
Um,
bags? What about things in your bags or organizational or things that you might need to bring with you because they might help you with accommodations or disability?
well, it's kind of hard to bring all the different things.
Mm.
It's heavy and it's hard to figure all the things out. You have to charge everything. You
Yes.
have to be really organized when you have to color code everything.
So it would be really helpful to sometimes have bags that are cuter than just a regular medical bag that had compartments for some of the things, especially if you were traveling, where maybe there was different colors on the bags or different compartments for different pieces.
Yeah, that would be nice. Something that's
Okay.
nice and light on your shoulder and not so
Mm.
heavy because I seem to be breaking every pocketbook there is. I need something that's sturdy and big. I have a lot of stuff to put in there. Same thing
Sturdy
with the
and big.
briefcase and all my thousands of bags that I would, have to
And your
put
bags are not
wheels.
functional?
Well, you have to wheel them or whatever,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
those kind with all the stuff for school. But yeah,
All
I would
right.
like to see other things to make easier for pocketbooks or something like that. That would be good.
So, yes, so I'm quietly and just starting to dance around launching. We're doing surveys and research and development into the clothing and accessories, and I'm very excited about all the conversations that could be happening around accessibility and fashion. So, this again is Embracing What's Possible with Roxy. You just watched an employment segment for October Employment Month, and I'm so glad that Jennifer was able to join us today. We're going to get a lot of information about her books and how to order them and get them to you. And man, you gave us some amazing information today on the deaf and hard of hearing. I hope we can have you back at some point, and I'll definitely be talking with you offline about how we can work on some of the content for the magazine and website. Thank you again for your time, and it was fabulous to have you and learn so much today.
Thank you.
I'm embracing what's possible, heart open wide, where fear used to whisper, now love is my guide. I'm not just surviving, I'm setting the pace, wearing my story with shimmering grace. From shadows to spotlight, I rise and I sing, embracing what's possible, changes everything. This is your Prospera era, where dreams align with grace, abundance flows like rivers. You've stepped into your place. Rise, reign, and remember, you were born to shine. Welcome to your moment, Prospera, it's time.
We hope you enjoyed today's show on Prospera TV Network. Make it a point to visit us on YouTube and catch all your favorite shows anytime you want. Interested in hosting a show of your own? Or advertising your business on our network? Contact Elena Rodriguez.